I mean, speaking of guys who have left Eugene, 11 Duck rookies made 53-man rosters in the NFL. Cut down day was today. Deadline was 1 p.m. Local time, like we'd mentioned, Dylan Gabriel is QB2 for the Cleveland Browns. Also, Derek Harmon, Jeff Bossa, Jamari Caldwell, Nico Reed, Connor Lee, Cornelius, Tez Johnson, Jordan James, Terrence Ferguson, and Jordan Birch all made 53-man rosters. That's I mean, the core of the team that went 13-0 last year. And I feel like that really proves to a lot of people who said, hey, maybe this team, got some breaks, maybe, shouldn't have won that Ohio State game, got some breaks late, shouldn't have won the Wisconsin game. It really proves how talented this program was for 11 guys, half the starting lineup to make a team.
Exactly. Like you said, it just proves to the talent that this team has. And we saw it in April during the draft when you had 10 guys go in the draft. It was the most in program history. But then even to get a guy like Nico Reed, guy who wasn't invited to the combine, wasn't even drafted, but everybody saw him in the Hall of Fame game, nearly had a pick six to start that early in that one. He's a guy who's been, from what I've been reading, he's been mixing in with the ones in training camp. I remember when I was down there for media day last month, I just had the TV on all day in the background while I was working on stuff, writing, like researching, writing, all that stuff. And I just had the NFL Network training camp coverage going on. And I looked up one time and Derwin James was talking about how good Nico Reed had been throughout training camp as a guy who was kind of a bit of a surprise. And I think that's exciting to see, just a guy who came into the season and wasn't really expected to be a starter. A lot of people thought Dante Manning would kind of be that guy next to Jabbar Muhammad, or even Cam Alexander would be that guy next to Jabbar Muhammad. And then Nico Reed kind of really solidified himself. He moved really from playing a lot more in the nickel, playing more on the outside, and has been able to. He's a guy who's versatile in his roles, and I think that's something that the Chargers like. And so exciting for him to see him be able to get that. Who else stands out for you? Obviously, a lot of these guys were expected to make these rosters, but just it's cool to see that it's officially happening now for them. And especially guys too, some of the later round picks like a Johnny Cornelius, Tez Johnson, to see, they are going to be parts of these teams this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this Chargers defense. I mean, it was the number one scoring defense, I think, in the league last year. And then you get to add two Ducks to it, Nico Reed, Jamari Caldwell. It's going to be dope. That defense, especially with Jesse Minter, another guy who should be a head coach in this league at some point. I think it's going to be phenomenal. I don't know why people are sleeping on him so much. I was, for what it's worth, drafting my defenses and nobody was picking the Chargers. I ended up with somebody else, but I was like, wow, like I really feel like they're being slept on. I'm also curious to see what Jordan James does in this San Francisco running back room. He gets to learn from one of the best backs in the league, Christian McCaffrey, but also this is a room that has been wide open. We've seen guys like Jordan Mason rise up and take starting roles when guys have gone down for injury or for other reasons. I think there's a strong chance, honestly, that he plays a role in this Niners team.
Yeah, the Niners running back room is interesting too, because you just don't know with McCaffrey. You expect him to be there, and when he's like 2 years ago, when he was one of the best players in the league, he's on the field like nearly 90% of the time for them. He's because he is so good as a receiver, because he's so dynamic as a runner, you just have him out there on the field all the time. But bilateral Achilles tendonitis, it seems like it's just like a ticking time bomb until he does blow one of those out, unfortunately. So obviously not what you want for Christian McCaffrey, but a lot of competition in this Niners running back room. They just traded for Brian Robinson from the Commanders just this past week. It's interesting to see that they're already looking to add depth to that. Not what Jordan James wants to see necessarily, because it prevents him getting on the field. But James, a guy who can get downhill and hit those outside zone schemes that Kyle Shanahan likes. Isaac Guerrero, another guy in that room, is one of my favorite running backs coming out of last year's draft, just because of the size and speed that he has when he was coming out of Louisville last year, running in the 4.3s. But yeah, talented guys in that running back room. Interesting to see where Jordan James plays out there. And then Tez Johnson too. I think it's interesting to see that he was expected maybe even to be like a day two kind of guy. And then the combine came out. He measured in like 155 pounds, runs in the 4.5s when everyone was expecting him to run in the 4.3s. But I don't know, I've watched Tez Johnson play enough football to know that guy's a ball player. He makes plays out there. You get the ball in his hands and he does special things. I always have, the thing that I've always been saying is that he just moves different. Like I remember the play from against Illinois last year. Gabriel's like sitting in the pocket for 5 seconds, just finds Tez on a check down, and then Tez like just weaves through guys in a way that not a lot of players do. And it's the same thing on the punt return against Boise State. He's just he kind of He's kind of the rare ability to
It's like
change
spatial
directions and
awareness, right?
accelerate at the same time too. Yeah, and his spatial awareness is really good. And then
I,
obviously we saw the athlete he is with the backflip that he had the other night after scoring a touchdown. So that it's cool to see that moment go a little bit viral for him
yeah.
and just kind of get the recognition. This guy, he's a freaky athlete, despite what some of the testing numbers may say. And at his size, it's a stacked receiving room in Tampa because you got two vets there in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then they just drafted Emeka Egbuka in the first round. But I think it's going to be interesting to see if Tez can kind of get on the field as a little bit of a gadget type guy in the slot, and then even if they could put him out in the return game because we saw how dangerous he is there at Oregon. When we look at Cleveland, what do you make of Dylan Gabriel getting this second number 2 quarterback job in Cleveland behind Joe Flacco?
I mean, I think it's a wide open room. I think there's the chance that Flacco starts 17 games for this team is very low.
You're
Gabriel
18
will,
and he's 40. Yeah.
Gabriel will almost definitely take snaps this season. And we saw him play well this preseason. It wasn't all perfect stuff for Dylan Gabriel, but like we said, the advantage he has in this league is that he's very experienced. He is traditionally a high completion percentage quarterback. The trouble comes when Cleveland asks him to take those deep shots and beat guys, beat corners deep. It's just if he can run the type of offense that he really succeeds in, and not have to chase teams from behind and not be the guy that they put in when they say, "Hey, we're down 30, we're just going to put you in, take some shots." I don't think that's a situation in which he's like ready to succeed. If he gets to play the type of offense he's great at playing, I think there's absolutely a shot that he, dare I say, earns a starting job at some point in this season.
Yeah, I don't think Flacco is long for this league. He obviously is former Super Bowl MVP, has been around for a long time, but it seems to year after year he seems to just kind of continue to just pop up as a starter for teams.
I really respect it,
injuries,
honestly.
and yeah, and when he was on Cleveland a couple of years ago, led them to the playoffs and ended up having a really good year and won comeback player of the year. So we'll see where it goes. But I would be very surprised if Joe Flacco does start all 17 games for this team. And I glad to see Dylan get that starting nod or that number 2 nod over Shedeur Sanders. He just played better than Shedeur Sanders in the preseason. We saw a lot of discourse recently, or at least I did online about why is Dylan Gabriel Shedeur is taking all these sacks and Gabriel's not taking. It's because Shedeur is running himself into sacks because he holds onto the ball, and Dylan Gabriel is an experienced quarterback who knows how to navigate a pocket and get the ball out on time and quickly, and that's what NFL coaches want to see. So I think Shedeur Sanders kind of holds himself back by that. That's the thing that, to me, with him as an NFL prospect, was beyond I know people talked about, his arm's only mediocre. To me, every time I watched a Colorado game, it would just drive me insane the way he runs himself into sacks and takes pressure that he just really doesn't need to. So I think you just kind of see the maturity in Dylan Gabriel's game in that way. And we saw it in their last preseason game, over 120 yards, touchdown pass, led them on a really nice drive, just, taking what the defense gave him and hitting this stuff. Being able to make some nice throws, but taking the easy stuff that the defense gave him and just marching them right down the field for a score. I think that's it's a weird situation in Cleveland. It's kind of a rough situation. It has been for years. Obviously, we know the history of Browns quarterbacks, and then even more recently with Deshaun Watson. But happy for Dylan Gabriel being able to hopefully get an opportunity to play some NFL football this season.
Yeah, man, and we're gonna go through the whole list here, but a guy I am really, really excited to see just how his offensive. How his head coach and his offensive coordinator uses him as Terrence Ferguson.
Absolutely.
We're gonna see a lot of him as Seahawks fans, but what Sean McVay can do with that guy, who is one of Oregon's best tight ends ever, just is a guy that can go up and get a ball, can block. I'm really excited to see how the Rams use him in this offense, because they have guys who really do fit that Rams system, but I think he can absolutely slide in there. He gets to play with an experienced quarterback in Matthew Stafford if he does start with some wide receivers. And I do think that Sean McVay will like the fact that Terrence Ferguson can block. We know he loves his blocking wide receivers, and Terrence Ferguson just feels like a huge power slot guy who can block.
Exactly. Ferguson was the best testing athlete at the combine among tight ends. Was second among tight ends in yards after the catch last year, but only trailing per reception. Only trailing Kenyon Sadiq on that in that matter. So really good athlete, like Sean McVay likes to do, get those guys in space, kind of hit them on the underneath stuff. It'll be interesting to see how long it is until he does really take over that full tight end one role from Tyler Higbee, because McVay's system is based in 11 personnel with, using those 3 receivers. But also, how does that evolve this year if they do have a guy that they like in Ferguson? Do they want to get him on the field more and trying to run those 12 personnel sets, get 2 tight ends out there? So one other one I want to hit before we do get to Jack Lazarus here and breaking down this Montana State game. Derek Harmon, we saw him go down in that Steelers game, in their last preseason game. There was a lot of fear that it could be something serious for him. Only MCL sprain, so he'll be out about a month, potentially on the IR to start the season. But by the end of the year, NFC North quarterbacks going to become familiar with him.